Glorfindel is well regarded as one of the mightiest elves of Middle-earth. But what made him unique above all other elves in Tolkien's work? And is there a chance he may well be the most powerful elf of the Third Age? Or does that title belong to another we are yet to discover? Join me as we unearth the history of Glorfindel before deciding who is the most powerful elf of all. Glorfindel was born in Valinor, sometime during the years of the trees. Beholding the light of the trees in itself sets him apart from most elves in the Third Age, as elves born in the year of the trees are generally more powerful than elves born after they were destroyed by Ungoliant and Morgoth. Galadriel and Círdan are other powerful elves who were lucky enough to be born during the years of the trees and managed to survive until the Third Age. In the time of the Noldor's exile from Valinor, Glorfindel stood steadfastly by the side of Turgon, the future High King of the Noldor, to whom his loyalty was unwavering. Reluctant to leave the Blessed Realm, Glorfindel followed only out of allegiance and kinship, and took no part in the tragic kinslaying at Alqualondë. Upon returning to Middle-earth, not much is known of Glorfindel's path, except that as a devoted follower of Turgon, he was appointed as the head of the House of the Golden Flower, one of the noble houses of Gondolin. When Turgon unexpectedly joined the battle at Nirnaeth Arnoediad, Glorfindel was at his side. As the tides of war turned against them, Glorfindel, alongside another notable elven lord, Ecthelion, guarded the retreating forces to the pass of Sirion. In the year 510 of the First Age, Morgoth finally discovered the hidden city of Gondolin. The resulting assault led to the city's utter destruction. Amid the chaos of Gondolin's fall, Tuor and Idril hurriedly gathered the remaining survivors of the Gondolindrim. They fled through Idril's secret passage, a hidden tunnel that led them safely out of the city. Their journey led them through the mountains to Cirith Thorana, where they were ambushed by orcs led by a fearsome Balrog. In a fierce battle, Glorfindel defeated the Balrog, sacrificing himself to save the group and ensuring their escape as both perished, falling into the abyss. Thorondor, King of the Eagles, retrieved Glorfindel's body, and a cairn was raised in his honour upon the mountainside. Grass and yellow flowers grew on the cairn, which was protected by the eagles until Beleriand was destroyed. Glorfindel's spirit passed to the halls of waiting, where he joined the fallen Noldor. However, his noble deeds, his reluctance at the exile, and his self-sacrifice earned him a rare honour, a swift re-embodiment granted by Manwë. His spiritual power, already great, was enhanced further as a result of his great sacrifice. He lived for many years in Valinor among the Eldar and the Maiar, who regarded him as an equal. It was in Valinor that he became a follower of Olorin, the Maiar who would later come to Middle-earth as Gandalf the Grey. It was in the Second Age that Glorfindel was sent back across the sea to Middle-earth by Manwë, likely around the year 1600. This is around the same time that Sauron forged the One Ring and Barad-dûr was built. His mission was to aid Gil-galad and Elrond in their struggle against Sauron. Though his deeds were great, they often went unrecorded, with his immense power hidden from view. We will likely never know what he did during this time, but I'd like to imagine he went on a mission to track down and kill the remaining Balrogs that fled the fall of Morgoth and were hiding around Middle-earth. In the Third Age, Glorfindel emerged as a key figure in the Battle of Fornost. In the year 1974 of the Third Age, the Witch King conquered Arthedain, completing the destruction of the Kingdom of Arnor, and took Fornost for his own. But Prince Eärnur, who would go on to become the last king of Gondor, sailed to the Havens with a massive fleet, and gathered the host of the West to march against the Witch King at Fornost. Eärnur's forces, alongside Glorfindel, who led a force from Rivendell, completely destroyed the Witch King's forces on the battlefield, leaving not even a single orc west of the Misty Mountains. When the Witch King emerged on the battlefield, his mere presence sent men and horses fleeing in terror. the Witch King challenged Eärnur, who did not flee, but his steed balked at the Dark Lord's approach. As the Witch King laughed, believing victory was within his grasp, Glorfindel entered the fray. Sensing Glorfindel's immense power, the Witch King stopped laughing and fled. When Eärnur sought to pursue, Glorfindel warned, "Do not pursue him. He will not return to this land. His doom is far off and will not come by the hand of man." Glorfindel's prophetic words would later prove true when the Witch King was eventually defeated, not by the hand of man, but that of a woman and a hobbit. During the War of the Ring, Glorfindel was among the elves sent by Elrond from Rivendell to search for the Ring-bearer. Elrond chose him specifically because Glorfindel did not fear the ring-wraiths, as his power extended into both the seen and unseen worlds. This power was seen by Frodo when he was on the brink of becoming a wraith. He glimpsed Glorfindel in the unseen world as a brilliant, shining figure amidst shadowy forms. On his perilous mission, Glorfindel's presence was so formidable that the ring-wraiths actively avoided him. He encountered 5 of them, and they fled at his approach. The ring-wraiths, who had previously shown no fear and struck terror into all, including Strider, were now themselves terrified. Glorfindel's aura in the unseen world appeared as a beacon of power, something the ring-wraiths dared not confront, even when they greatly outnumbered him. He was so confident in his power that he even gave up his steed to Frodo, certain the ring-wraiths would not dare approach him. When Glorfindel ultimately found the ring-bearer, he placed Frodo on his horse, Asfaloth, and, as the ring-wraiths approached, commanded him to ride on. The white horse carried Frodo safely across the ford of Bruinen. In Rivendell, Glorfindel played a key role in the Council of Elrond, offering wisdom and insight. Although never explicitly mentioned, it is widely accepted that Glorfindel was a member of the White Council, which consisted of the most powerful and wise in Middle-earth, alongside the likes of Galadriel, Elrond, Saruman and Gandalf. This is a safe assumption given that Glorfindel himself mentions being present at a council alongside Saruman. "Then," said Glorfindel, "let us cast it into the deeps, and so make the lies of Saruman come true." For it is clear now that even at the council his feet were already on a crooked path. He knew that the ring was not lost forever, but wished us to think so, for he began to lust for it for himself. Yet oft in lies truth is hidden. In the sea it would be safe. This idea is rejected by Gandalf, who is wary of the ring reappearing far in the future due to the changing shape of the world, and Gandalf also rejected the idea of Glorfindel joining the Fellowship. Though only briefly considered, Gandalf noted that Glorfindel's great power would make the mission of secrecy impossible. Had Glorfindel gone with the Fellowship, the ring-wraiths would have been able to see him from miles away in the unseen world, once they started using their fell beasts. During the War of the Ring, Glorfindel's actions remain largely unrecorded. While the Fellowship made their way towards Mordor, he likely took part in defending the Elven realms from attacks by Sauron's forces. However, he was among those who joined Elrond's company for the wedding of Elessar and Arwen. With the war over and the age of elves waning, Glorfindel's task in Middle-earth, just like Gandalf's, was complete. His remaining time in Middle-earth remains a mystery, though he likely passed into the west with the bearers of the rings, or perhaps remained for a time, overseeing the final days of Middle-earth's cleanup before departing to the Undying Lands. When it comes to deciding whether or not Glorfindel was the most powerful elf of the Third Age, we need to consider the rivals for this title, the obvious ones being Galadriel, Elrond and Círdan. All 3 of them were powerful enough to bear the Elven rings. But Círdan, despite being the oldest and having great foresight, was not noted as being powerful in the same way as Galadriel. And given Galadriel grew up in the light of the 2 trees of Valinor, she was definitely more powerful than Elrond. We should also consider how much of Galadriel's power is attributed to her possession of the Elven ring, Nenya. But Glorfindel, too, was born under the light of the trees, and something Glorfindel had, which Galadriel did not, is an enhanced power boost given to him by Manwë from his reincarnation. This would be something similar to what we saw Gandalf receive when he went from being Gandalf the Grey to Gandalf the White, having also sacrificed himself killing a Balrog. It seems the Valar really appreciate those who fall to their deaths while defeating a Balrog. When Glorfindel was reincarnated, his powers were so great that the Maiar in Valinor considered him their equal. So I would like to think it is likely he would be more powerful than Galadriel if we took away her elven ring. And just like Gandalf, Glorfindel did not openly display his true power, so we don't really know the extent of his strength. But there are some other contenders we have yet to consider, which Glorfindel alludes to himself when he finds Frodo. There are few even in Rivendell that can ride openly against the Nine. But such as there were, Elrond sent out north, west and south. So, Glorfindel tells us himself that there are a few others in Rivendell who are powerful enough to withstand the Ringwraiths, and we do not know for sure whether Glorfindel was even the most powerful of those sent out by Elrond. And given that Elrond was the one who sent out the riders, and was also already in Rivendell when Frodo arrived, we can rule out Elrond from being one of the riders. If we look at the timeline of events, we know that Glorfindel left Rivendell in search of Frodo on the 9th of October, and it was 9 more days until he eventually found Aragorn and the hobbits, and a further 2 days until Frodo safely reaches Rivendell. By the time the Council of Elrond took place, Frodo had only been in Rivendell for 5 days, so it is entirely likely that the other elven lords sent in the other directions to find the Ringbearer would not have been able to return in time for the Council or even known to call off their search. Who is to say for sure whether another elven lord, such as Ecthelion, who also sacrificed himself at the fall of Gondolin while killing Gothmog, the Lord of Balrogs, was not also granted the same reincarnation alongside Glorfindel? If the Valar were fans of Glorfindel's sacrifice upon Cirith Thoranarth, then they would surely have been impressed by the injured and unarmed Ecthelion plunging the spike of his helmet into the Lord of Balrogs, sending them both into the Fountain of the King, where they would both die. It was Ecthelion's initial sacrifice that allowed Glorfindel to flee the city with the survivors. If it had been a different elven lord who found Frodo, we would likely never have seen Glorfindel at the council, and may not even have heard him mentioned in the Lord of the Rings at all. So is it plausible that the most powerful elf lord of the Third Age was another unnamed elf we never got to see in the book? Let me know down below, who do you think the other elven lords strong enough to ride out against the Ringwraiths might have been? If you like the idea that Ecthelion, or some other Balrog-slaying elf lord from the First Age, might have been an unnamed participant of the War of the Ring, please hit that subscribe button down below. And don't forget to let me know who you think was the most powerful elf of the Third Age. Thanks for listening.